Welcome, dear friends. Today we are going to discuss about the main classification of contract. In the previous lecture, we discussed about the definition of contract, introduction to contract, and we saw a contract is an agreement enforceable by law. Not all promises are contracts. Not all agreements are contract. Only those agreements which are supported or which having the validity of legality, that is known as the contract. Agreements which are enforceable by law, right? Which can be claimed in the court of law. So informal promises, informal agreements, these are not comes under the contracts. Social agreements, domestic agreements, these are not the examples of contract, right? Only formal and professional agreements which are enforceable by law comes under the purview of the contract. Okay, so what is the benefit of that, right? So there are almost two parties, minimum two parties in a contract, and if there is a breach, if there is a willful default from any of the parties in a contract, the other party can move to the court of law. That is the benefit of enforceability, correct? Yes. The next week comes across the classification of contract, main classification of contract. We are not going in detail, but just to give an overview regarding what are the different classifications of contract and what are the different bases in which we classify the contract. Almost 14 to 14 classification types are there and is categorized under four bases. First one is on the basis of formation and creation. Second one is on the basis of validity. Third one is on the basis of execution of performance, and fourth one is with respect to the liability. Okay, first one is formation. On the basis of formation, this is express contracts are there, implied contracts are there, quasi contracts are there, contingent contracts are there, and e-contracts. So these five categorization comes under the formation of contract. Then if you classify based on the validity, we have valid contracts are there, void contracts are there, voidable contracts are there, illegal contracts are there, and unenforceable contracts are there. So it also comes around five, so total 10 types are there under two categorization. The third one is based on the execution of performance, executed contract and executory contract. Okay, executed means nothing is there. Executed means done. It's a past contract. Executory means which are going to perform. Okay, still yet to perform. That is the concept of executory contract. Then we have the liability, unilateral and bilateral contract. Under the liability classification, we have unilateral and bilateral contracts. Okay. So on the basis of formation and creation, express, implied, quasi, contingent, and e-contract. So what is going to be express contracts? I'm just going to brief about the express and implied contracts in this class. Express means all written contracts are examples of express contracts. And one more important interesting factor is that all verbal contracts are also valid in the eyes of law. All verbal contracts are also valid in the eyes of law. So all verbal contracts, all written contracts are examples of express contracts, which are visible in nature, which are tangible in nature, right, which we can see and touch. That is the concept. Implied means by the conduct of the parties or by the action of the parties. That is implied contracts. For example, boarding a public bus, ordering in a restaurant. So what is the meaning of that? So boarding a public bus means we are not making any contract, right? Physically, we are not making any contract, but it is evident that when we are boarded a private or whatever the public transport or whatever the medium, right? So it's an implied condition, it's an implied contract from the passenger that I am ready to pay. I'm ready to pay. In the same case, when we are ordering something in a restaurant, right? There is before the order, no need to make any agreement. It's already evident that as and when we ordered, after the food, right, we have to pay. It's implied, right? So there is no need for any further discussion regarding that. So it's based upon the action of the party. So express means all written contracts are examples of express contracts, and implied means by the conduct or the action of the parties. So that is the concept.